LA the other day, yesterday, with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned, I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but doesn't think you can win.
Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I asked my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate?
We all know Bill Maher's got a soft spot for Gavin Newsom, but that hasn't stopped him from torching the California governor for wrecking the Golden State. Ask any Democrat who's gunning for the DNC crown in 2028, and Gavin's name pops right up. But his record-run California, Maher's own backyard, is an absolute mess, and it drives Ma nuts. So he didn't hold back on one of his favorite liberal golden boys of yore. Craving raw, unapologetic political heat, smash that subscribe button, and let's get into
the law. In this, I think we have way too many regulations and laws, as we've talked about. And this one, I think, says if you're a department store with over 500 employees, you have to have a gender-neutral toy department. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I get it.
So do you think that's silly? Do you think that's a silly thing that we do too much government there?
That's an interesting one, because the department stores came to us supporting that, and they were the ones making a case for that. They were making a case they're already moving in that direction.
Wanted you to make a law about them?
Well, but they supported the legislation. It wasn't legislation that was enacted, that was initiated from my office, but it was legislation that came up with interesting support from the industry.
Bill didn't waste time getting to the heart of the matter. Red tape in California under Gavin Newsom, the state has become a bureaucratic nightmare entangled in so much regulation and inefficiency that it's nearly impossible to accomplish anything meaningful. Ma isn't just annoyed, he's furious. He thinks the endless paperwork and performative politics are choking the life out of the state. Just take last year's wildfires as an example. The government's response was sluggish, mismanaged, and borderline negligent. And now look at its limp, lackadaisical reaction to the current IC-related riots raging across California. There's chaos in the streets and no accountability. Newsom's initial reaction was to side with the rioters and dare Trump to arrest.
Years, the fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
So Weber, after mounting pressure on social media and growing backlash from both sides of the aisle, Gavin Newsom finally caved. He issued a public apology, graveling, backpedaling, and trying to save face for both his words and his inaction. Then came the tough talk. He threatened the rears with legal consequences and warned that multiple arrests were imminent. But for many, it was too little too late. The damage had already been done, and Noam's delayed response only reinforced the perception of weak leadership. His sudden shift in tone required more of political survival than genuine accountability, and people weren't buying it.
Eventually come out and apologize. If you want to go on Twitter, Rob, and just go to the apology video that he came out eventually. This is, I think, 4-5 days later. On day one, I asked him, I said, are you going to come out and do this? Watch how he's finally wanting to have his people be responsible. Go ahead, Rob.
If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account.
Okay.
That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted.
How can a man like this lead California, let alone the entire United States, if he couldn't even control the chaos erupting in his own backyard? How can anyone trust him to handle a real crisis on the national stage? Imagine an aggressive foreign adversary at our doorstep. Would he fold under pressure, issue another apology, and scramble? To clean up the mess, leadership demands strength, decisiveness, and the ability to act swiftly. In times of crisis, Maher sees a pattern here: inept leadership wrapped in progressive packaging, and he's not buying it. To him, California's dysfunction isn't just a local problem, it's a warning sign for the entire country. If this is the future the left wants to export nationwide, Maher wants no part of it, and frankly, who can blame him? No wonder even some Democrats think he stands no chance of winning any elections on the Democratic ticket.
LA yesterday with my friend Tavis Smiley. I'm an investor and a supporter of that station. And he said, who do you want to run for president? I mentioned I think you'd be good at the job. Not this year, we know. No, I know. But he said, I don't think he could win. I don't think he could win. He's too progressive coming from this state and what he's done in this state to win in any southern state, any red state. I disagreed, but no, this is a progressive African-American owned station, and I'm sure they like you, but doesn't think you can.
Now, this is coming from a black voter who probably has voted Democratic Party all his life, and I agree Gavin Newsom wouldn't win, not just because he's too progressive, but because he's simply too inept. Honestly, I don't know which ticket would be worse, Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom. Surname doesn't give us the infamous word salads Kamala is known for, but his mismanagement of California's economy, rampant homelessness, rising crime, and tone-deaf leadership don't exactly scream commander-in-chief. America deserves better, someone with backbone, real results, and leadership that extends beyond good hair and polished speeches. If this is the best the Democrats can offer, they're in serious trouble. Meanwhile, several people have expressed disdain for how Newsom is running the state. One of them is Mel Gibson.
And Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear they're unable to respond effectively and responsibly during calamity. Whether it's sheer incompetence or outright malevolence, the reality is stark. California's in a state of turmoil, and I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office? How much more of their destructive decision-making masquerading as leadership are we going to tolerate?
Honestly, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass should bury their heads in shame, and frankly, they should consider resigning. Their leadership has been nothing short of ineffective, and Californians are paying the price under their watch. The state has spiraled into a mess of high taxes, rising crime, unaffordable housing, and bureaucratic gridlock. Their inefficiency has driven countless residents to flee in search of better opportunities in states with stronger governance and lower costs of living. Just look at Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro, both high-profile figures who packed up and left, citing California's crushing tax burden and economic mismanagement. And they're not alone. Families, business owners, and middle-class workers are all heading for the exits when the so-called Golden State becomes unlivable for the very people who built it. That's not just a red flag, it's a 5-alarm fire. If Newsom and Bass can't reverse course, then the honorable thing to do is step aside and let someone competent take the reins. Another person who feels Newsom should resign is Bill O'Reilly.
It doesn't seem to be an organic display of protest. That means that it doesn't have a constituency among regular people. The Los Angeles protesters were fueled by very militant far-left organizations that passed out masks and frozen water bottles and other forms of protection for the protesters. Same thing in New York. This is all organized by the far left, but the people aren't coming out. In fact, on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock in New York, everybody went home. I guess they were hungry. So this is kind of contrived, and the media hoped it would explode into something more so that Trump would look bad, but that doesn't seem to have been the case.
Now, O'Reilly didn't mention any names here, but let's be honest, the one name that immediately comes to mind is Gavin Newsom. I mean, think about it, who was quick to offer veiled support to the protesters when everything first erupted, who avoided clear condemnation, and instead delivered vague, politically safe statements that seemed to plate the mob rather than restore order. It wouldn't be a stretch to imagine that Gavin, or at least some of his allies, might be indirectly backing these protests. We've heard reports of frozen water bottles and face masks being handed out to protesters, and it raises real questions. Who's funding this? Who's organizing the logistics? If it turns out that left-leaning groups connected to Newsom are involved, then it's more than just bad optics. It's a dangerous betrayal of public trust. Leaders are supposed to calm the storm, not quietly fuel it from behind the curtain. And if that's what's happening, we deserve answers.
California Governor Newsom wanted these demonstrations to explode so he could use that as a political cudgel against Trump and elevate himself into a left-wing candidate for president in 28. And let me back that up. So when you have the police chief of Los Angeles in a press conference saying, we're outmanned, we can't control the violence, the fires on the cars, the throwing objects at our own police and ICE agents, we can't control it. And you don't have the governor immediately sending the National Guard down to help the LAPD. Then you know the governor doesn't care or wants it to explode. And that's what I believe Newsom did.
O'Reilly has a valid point here. While Gavin Newsom hasn't officially declared his intention to run for president in 2028, he certainly hasn't done much to hide it either, from his frequent national media appearances to the launch of his own podcast framed as a platform for engaging with people across the political spectrum. It's clear he's laying the groundwork for a future campaign, the rebranding, the outreach, the sudden tone of bipartisanship. It all points to someone with bigger ambitions, but here's the real concern. Does he have to jeopardize public safety and property just to curry favor with the progressive base, encouraging soft on crime policies, turning a blind eye to civil unrest, and avoiding accountability in moments of crisis? May win applause from the far left, but it puts everyday Californians at risk. Presidential hopefuls are supposed to lead, not pander. If Newsom is willing to gamble with lives and livelihoods for political gain, it raises serious questions about his fitness for higher office. Now, O'Reilly compares New York's response to the protests to LA's response, and you can clearly see Gavin's hypocrisy.
They didn't want it to explode, and it's easier to control it here because the city is so claustrophobic, and the cops know how to do this, and they did a good job. So they didn't give the miscreants a lot of room to set anything on fire or things like that, and you didn't need the federal.
Yes, that's the job of a proactive, effective leader, someone who understands the pulse of their city and acts swiftly to prevent chaos before it ignites. It's about being present, decisive, and willing to make tough calls, even if they're politically inconvenient. The governor of New York, though a Democrat, showed exactly that kind of leadership when unrest threatened to spiral out of control. She didn't hesitate. She deployed resources, enforced order, and made it clear that protecting lives and property wasn't up for debate. No pandering, no delay, no vague statements meant to please both sides, just action. Compare that to Newsom's response: slow, politically calculated, and ineffective. When leaders hesitate in moments that demand clarity, the consequences are real. Businesses torched, communities shaken, and public trust eroded. That's the difference between a leader who governs and one who campaigns.
Or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves, or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make...
Newsom got this one right. The Democratic Party has become so toxic, so consumed by internal contradictions and performative politics that even its own loyalists are heading for the exits. Case in point, former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, who recently announced her departure from the Democratic Party. While she didn't offer a clear, detailed reason for her exit, the writing is on the wall. You don't just walk away from a party you served at the highest level unless something's seriously wrong behind the carefully worded statements and media spin, it's obvious that she was pushed out by the very dysfunction she once defended, whether it's the growing internal divisions that disconnect from everyday Americans or the obsession with identity politics over substance the party is imploding from within. Newsom may still be holding on, but even he can't deny the cracks when insiders start walking. That's not just a signal, it's an alarm bell. And on this note, we draw the curtains on today's explosive video. If you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.